What's good? It's Woog. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love hip hop like I do. So Jay-Z took to a social media forum and made the comment that as it pertains to verses, that there is not an MC, there is no rapper that can share the stage with him and hang with him in one of these versus battles. And so I'm asking the question, is that true? And as I'm thinking about this, a couple thoughts, come to mind. And the biggest of which is, what's the criteria that he's even basing that comment on? Because when I first heard it, I took it to mean, Jay-Z's always kind of held his career in an esteem where he looks at himself as being sort of above the fray. And, early in his career, he was kind of like, he would be more willing to be like on a team, like when he was coming up under Jaz-O, or even when he did the Hard Knock Life Rough Rider tour. That was kind of like a co-headlining thing where, DMX was every bit as prominent at the time as Jay-Z. Even years later in his, collaboration with Beyonce or something, or, the Watch the Throne project. Okay, yeah, that was Jay-Z and Kanye, but in that case, it was an older Jay-Z who, as far as I see it, was extending his relevant shelf life by basically linking up with the hottest artist in the rap world at the time in Kanye West. So yeah, I thought that he was able to extend his relevancy, and not that he wouldn't be relevant if he doesn't need to drop another album for his entire life, and he is relevant. But in terms of just being an active player in the game, that collaboration and just the overall association with the hottest in Kanye West, I looked at as being a bit of a calculated play. Not that he doesn't love Kanye's music. Kanye was producing for him several albums before they collaborated on Watch the Throne, starting with, I believe, The Dynasty in the year 2000. Around the same time, Kanye produced the Truth song for Beanie Siegel, and produced for Scarface on the album called The Fix. But what does Jay-Z mean? What is the criteria? Are we talking about just being able to survive 20 rounds? Because if 20 songs is the threshold, that's a pretty easy threshold to make. And, I've seen a lot of these verses now where, the song for song equality just isn't there. Like, somebody will play and perform a song that was like an all-out hit or something. Then the person will respond with, a song that maybe their hardcore fans are fans of. But, you look at the charts and it's like nowhere close in terms of chart performance, in terms of how often you might hear it in 90s radio or an older radio station. Basically, how much staying power a given track has. And you're like, wait, that song that they just played didn't measure up with the song that they just played. But you get a lot of that in the verses. So again, 20 songs isn't a high threshold. So if there are artists who can arguably be up there with him, who would those artists be? I think we would be naming the same things, you and I, like Drake, Kanye West, LL Cool J, when you look at the amount of big songs that he had. And I'm not talking about in terms of chart performance alone, because rap did not chart on the major, like the Hot 100, or the rap albums weren't charting as high on the Billboard 200 as they do today. For instance, Jay-Z's first #1 hit didn't come until Empire State of Mind on the Blueprint 3. Think about that. Like, Jay-Z, like Dirt Off Your Shoulder, Big Pimpin', 99 Problems, Give It To Me, I'm a Hustler, Baby, or Hard Knock Life. None of these hit #1, but you wouldn't say for a minute that these weren't relevant hits from Hove, right? Like, these were basically a part of the soundtrack of the summer, and Jay-Z went on like an unprecedented run from 96 to 2003, starting with Reasonable Doubt, the debut album, all the way to the Black Album, 2003, and every single year he delivered a huge album with increasing success, basically. So, you start with Reasonable Doubt, and then, In My Lifetime Volume 1, where, both of those were marginally successful, but his name was bubbling, songs doing progressively better, and then Hard Knock Life just changed everything. That was the one that sold, I believe, the highest selling album of his till this day. Volume 2, Hard Knock Life. Big singles on it. Again, no #1 hits, but big successful singles. Songs that played all over radio, and their music videos were playing all over the place. Even the songs that weren't singles, like Money Cash Hoes, did pretty well. So every single summer, even after that, or every single year at least, after Hard Knock Life, it was Volume 3, Life and Times of Sean Carter, then The Dynasty, then The Blueprint in 2001, then Blueprint 2 in 2002, double album, and then the Black Album in 2003. So every year, he delivered a smash album. Hove held us down for 6 summers. Well, he said that back in 2001 with The Blueprint. Well, he had another couple summers to go, so he wasn't quite done yet. And then obviously his output has been more sporadic after that. He hasn't done the every year thing. By the way, in that stretch between 96 and 2003, he also had like The Streets Is Watching soundtrack. Not to mention a ton of singles that weren't even on the actual album. So, Hey Poppy, which was like a bonus cut on, I believe, the Dynasty album. And then Jigga My Nigga, which was on the Rough Riders compilation, which also featured on the end as a bonus track on, I believe, Volume 3, Life and Times of Sean Carter. And then he had songs that were like soundtrack songs, like Who You With, I Suggest You Wanna Roll With The Click, Who You With, that was like on the Sprung soundtrack. So Girl's Best Friend, like he just had a bunch of songs that were singles, had videos, but didn't feature on an album. So yeah, you would have a lot of difficulty trying to match Jay blow for blow. But again, 20 songs isn't a big threshold. So, you know, Drake could go 30 rounds with Jay-Z. Kanye could go 30 rounds with Jay-Z. Like, to really see whose catalog starts thinning out first, you'd have to up the threshold to like 40 songs or 50 songs, because the ones who are the guys who stuck around and had like extended success in their careers commercially and kept on releasing, you know, albums. I mean, Snoop Dogg's got a lot. Not necessarily, I believe, as many as like Drake or Jay-Z or Kanye, but, you know, Snoop could easily hang for 30 songs. Are you kidding me? Eminem, you know, he could hang for, 30 rounds. Nas could probably hang for 30 rounds. I mean, you could say, you know, Outkast, or, you know, again, I said LL Cool J, he's another one. So the thing is, you would never get a situation where you get Jay-Z to perform like 40 songs on a Versus platform. I think that he is more so just staying within his mode of staying above the fray, saying, I'm here, the rest of the rap world's here because I did what I did and my legacy was cemented well before Kanye's and Drake's and all of the people who basically were coming up listening to a lot of my music. I think that that's more so the approach that Jay takes. But Lil Wayne's another one who's got, I mean, he could go 30 rounds just on features, not even featuring his own music. So I don't think this is a question of whether or not any of these artists have like 20 to 30 songs that could go round for round and not just totally feel, you know, subpar or out of place. Again, other artists would be hard pressed to have, you know, 30 songs that, as Jay's rattling off relevant song after relevant song, it would be hard to keep pace for most artists. But those few that I mentioned, they would be able to hang with him. Now, again, if you extend that to 50 songs or something like that, they might have more difficulty, especially I think Snoop would struggle with like 50 songs. But another thing to consider is, in terms of commercial success, you know how I was saying that rappers weren't having as much success with their singles in, you know, the 90s or even in the early 2000s as they do today? Well, also, you know, Drake is basically breaking like #1 records, like the most #1 records, most top 10s, most top 40s, most albums on the chart at one time. Well, because we're in the streaming era, the Spotify era, when somebody releases like a album with 23 songs, all of those songs are eligible to place on the Billboard Hot 100. Whereas back in the day, you take Tupac, for instance, when he released the How Do You Want It single, around the time he dropped that famous double album, All Eyes on Me, he had a How Do You Want It single. That How Do You Want It single had How Do You Want It, it had Two of America's Most Wanted, it had California Love, and it had Hit 'Em Up, which wasn't even on All Eyes on Me, but it had 4 songs. Now, if that was today, all 4 of those songs would have been like top 10, top 20 placers on the Billboard Hot 100. But back in the day, you packaged a single, marketed it as a single, and that's what would be considered to be like #1, #5, #10, based on how well that CD version of the single, or back in the day vinyl single, did. Now you don't even package singles in the way that you used to. You just release a 23-song album, and if it gets enough streams, like somebody sits back, listens to the album, well, they just contributed essentially a micro sale of all of the songs on that album. Whether the song has a music video, whether it's playing on the radio, it doesn't matter. It is streaming based, and the streams kind of slowly elevate those songs to where, yeah, you could have like 10 songs in the top 50 if you release an album that people are just that head over heels for. So you can imagine if Tupac dropped All Eyes on Me in 2021 or 2020, he would have had 10 songs that charted, or 12 songs, however many songs that charted out of the 23 or 24 songs on All Eyes on Me. So it's not apples to apples when you're looking at Drake's single success and then you measure it up against a Tupac or a Biggie or even a Jay-Z, because Jay-Z had to market Hard Knock Life as a single. But if he released, Blueprint in 2020 instead of 2001, then please believe The Takeover, Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City, and Song Cry, and probably Never Change, and all these other songs, Renegade with Eminem, these would have all been on the charts. So Billboard success is a little bit misleading when you're talking about the success of particular singles, because the rules of the game have changed. But yeah, in terms of the verses, the answer is yes. There are other rappers who would be able to hang if you go 20 songs or 30 songs. And also, are we talking who is performing their songs better? Because if that's the case, then yeah, if you're talking 20 songs, Busta Rhymes could hang with Jay-Z if you're limiting it to 20 between his features and his high-power singles, plus Busta Rhymes' breath control, like he could do that. His super fast rhymes, loud rhymes. He was one of those rappers who, when he was emerging with albums like The Coming and When Disaster Strikes and Anarchy, he was one of the most animated stage performers where he was just hopping around, just, I'm talking skinny Busta Bus, and just his level of charisma. Yeah, I mean, if anything, Busta Rhymes could potentially outperform Jay-Z if they're going track to track. Who's really bringing the energy? Not to say Jay-Z's a bad performer by any stretch. He's actually a really good and, in my opinion, underrated performer. I think he's got resonance in his voice where, everybody could hear every word of his verse because he's projecting it properly. It doesn't have to be like a KRS-One, but like Black Thought from the Roots, he's another one who projects well. But yeah, if we're talking performance-based, then, a Busta Rhymes could hang with him. But if we're talking, like, just how deep your catalog goes, then you've got to go beyond 20 to 30 songs to really figure out who has the absolute deepest catalogs where, you could talk about playing hits for like 40 to 50 songs long without, losing steam in like the quality of the songs that you're presenting. Because again, in some of these battles, I see things where hardcore fans of the artist could appreciate the single, but no, it didn't have the same crossover success, or it wasn't as impactful even when it initially dropped. You know what I mean? So yeah, those few artists, Drake, Kanye West, Lil Wayne, LL Cool J, maybe Snoop Dogg, probably Eminem. I mean, DMX could, rest in peace, could obviously hang for 20 to 30. We already saw him go 20 songs with Snoop Dogg. The question is, if you expand it to 30 or 40, that's where you could tell the true depth of the catalog. So yeah, it depends on what discussion you're having, but yes, other people could hold their own in a 20-song versus battle. Would Jay-Z agree to it? Evidently not, right? But yeah, isn't that a trip that Jay-Z's first and still to this day only #1 single is Empire State of Mind? He's got 3 collabs that were #1, 3 where he was featured on another artist's song. I believe Rihanna's Umbrella hit #1, Beyonce's Crazy in Love, and I think the third was Mariah Carey's Heartbreaker, hit #1 and featured Jay-Z. But yeah, only one of his own songs is #1. Yeah, but you're not gonna for a second say that Drake's music was that much more impactful than Jay-Z's, because Drake has a handful of #1 hits and Jay has 1, would you? So yeah, other rappers can hang with Jay, but again, if you extend the format to 50 to even 60 songs, I think that others would start thinning out and Jay-Z might be the last man standing at the end of the day. That's another discussion for another day. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love hip hop like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.